So let's get into the local forecast. Just like yesterday, we're going to briefly talk about Erin, kind of talk about the generic things that you need to know, and then we'll bring in Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley from WFMY to talk a little bit more in depth about Erin, more in depth about hurricanes and how they form, and a lot of cool developments in the forecast model world as we go through the next few months and most likely years, decades even. Okay, what's happening right now? Well, here's the current setup. You have satellite and radar, wide view here of the southeast. Yesterday, we had this little cold front that was situated, I just drew that upside down. This little cold front that was situated across the area. Well, now it has started to shift offshore, allowing for all of the heaviest rain, heaviest moisture to now be shifting away from the Carolinas. So whereas yesterday, we had rain and storms coming in from the south and pushing north. Now with the low moving, now we have storms coming in from the south and west and pushing northeast. And then tomorrow, it's going to be a different story, and they'll be more consistent across the I-40 corridor. Does that look normal to you guys? Well, it should, because as the low moves away, the wind pattern changes, and that of course impacts where exactly the storm's set up. So let's talk about what's happening out there right now. We have a wide view here of Doppler radar. Lighter rain that moved through Richmond County and Chesterfield County earlier has started to move away, and now we are tracking a few areas of heavy rain, few thunderstorms, actually now pushing through Burke County and Caldwell County. Now, yes, there are pockets of heavy rain here. We have some lightning strikes as well, but it's not a ton of action, at least at this hour. Now, a little bit further south, we are also watching some light to moderate rain pushing into Chester County as well as York County. Again, this is nothing like what we had yesterday. It's nothing even like the rain this morning. This is just kind of the tail end of that moisture here on Tuesday. After this, we'll get a nice break. Wednesday's best chance of rain is morning to midday, and then we do see a drying out pattern. And speaking of, let's look at Futurecast. Here's Wednesday morning. Again, you can see most areas along and north of I-40 corridor with the best chance of rain. Now, I do think we'll have a few areas of rain between 40 and 85, but I just want to remind us that there's always a general area that we have a higher rain chance, right? Yesterday it was south of 85, today it was south and west of 85, and again tomorrow it'll be north and west of 85. And I know that technically I-85 is north to south, not west to east, but because of the way it's situated here in the Carolinas, it is a good reference point. You know if you live north and south of 85. James, do you live north or south of 85?
I live south of 85 where it never snows.
I'm going to write a book called It Never Ever Snows in Matthews, North Carolina.
It's true.
I don't know. Maybe it does. All right, back to the forecast. Okay, so Futurecast midday tomorrow. Again, you see a drying out pattern. We'll see more sunshine by the afternoon, and then eventually more typical summertime pattern both Thursday and Friday. And if you're like, what the heck do you mean by summertime pattern? Drier in the morning, few areas of patchy fog, and then storms popping up in the afternoon. But I think the more important thing is temperatures back near 90 degrees. I know Tim and I talked about this last night right here on WCNC Plus, but we have not seen temps at or above 90 since August 1st. So remember, we had a 17-day stretch of 90 plus. We got one break. Then we had a 26-day stretch. And now we haven't seen 90 in 11 days. But that's going to change by the end of the week. Before we talk about the warmer temperatures, let's talk about Futurecast rainfall. I don't think we're going to see a significant risk for flooding here. Additional rainfall totals at a maximum between about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. Again, tomorrow morning, best chance to see heavy rain along and north of the I-40 corridor. Here are the temperatures. We finally dropped from an average high of 90 to an average high of 89, which means we're technically on a downward trend as we get closer to fall. But temperatures, again, are still expected to be warmer than they have been. We were below average for the majority of the first week and a half of August, and now we'll be shifting back closer to normal. Now, of course, again, we are going to talk more in depth about Erin, so don't worry about that, but I do want to give an update on the current position, what's happening. Right now, Erin still churning thousands of miles away from the Carolinas. Now, technically, if you're in California, it's even further away, but let's just talk Carolinas wise. It's about 2,700 to 2,900 miles away, depending on where you are. Now, if you think about that in semantics wise, that means that there's so much time that things can change. But again, as we talked about yesterday, what we do look for is consistency in trends and patterns, which so far we have had nicely. Now, before we talk about Erin's current track, I do want to show you what's happening east of Erin. So if the storm right now I don't want to draw on a front on accident. So this is Erin. Notice there's multiple tropical waves that are going to be moving off the coast of Africa over the next week and a half. So I don't want us to get too bogged down by Erin, especially since we have pretty good agreement as of right now that it will likely take a trek, maybe not exactly where the trek is, but to northeast. I do want people to know that there are still many storms that will likely come afterward. That is not to be scary, it's just the reality of hurricane season, so we need to make sure we're not focusing in too much on one storm. Here's the latest forecast track for Erin. The storm is still a tropical storm. Winds at 45 miles an hour, is expected to become our first hurricane and eventually first major hurricane by this weekend. Now, we have not seen a hurricane, of course, so far this year. First hurricane, first major, pretty big deal, but the storm is still expected at some point to take a trek toward the north and northeast. By the end of this 5-day forecast cone, you can actually start right now to see that trek that's turning a little bit northerly, and that of course is because of that high pressure ridge that it's expected to eventually pull apart, allowing for a nice path for Erin to trek toward the north. I do want to show you, I updated this during our main forecast on WCNC Charlotte, but I did put together a little headlines of what the current thoughts on Erin were, because for people who maybe can't watch the entire show, just wanted you to have a good kind of grasp. So again, it's a tropical storm, thousands of miles away still from the United States. Will it become the first hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season? Too early to know where it goes, but a curve out to sea is likely. When storms form this far out east, pretty good agreement that it eventually curves because of that same ridge of high pressure. Again, it's where the ridge is stronger, where the ridge is weaker, that determines when exactly that curve will happen. But as of right now, it is something our team is monitoring, but not something our team is worried about. And I think those are two distinct differences, right, between monitoring and watching versus something we're concerned about. So hourly forecast for tomorrow, best chance to see rain in the morning. That'll mainly be north of the I-40 corridor, north of I-85, and then we'll slowly, gradually increase sunshine by the afternoon. Monday's high temperature was 84, today's was 86, tomorrow's forecasting right around 88, so we're on that step ladder up to better weather by the weekend. Now, I do want to remind folks it is still going to be hot and humid, so better weather doesn't necessarily mean it feels comfortable outside, but I know we've seen tons of comments, tons of complaints about all the cool air, all the clouds, and so that is breaking down by the weekend. We'll have multiple days in the upper 80s to near 90, and even some drier air, which we don't get a ton of, really dry days this time of year, but 20 to 10% even chance for rain and storms both Saturday and Sunday, which of course Saturday is home match for the Charlotte FC, and the Knights are at home in a series starting today through Sunday. I'm going to leave this up for a few seconds, and we're going to bring in Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley from WFNY, so don't go anywhere.